Hi, my name is Ron Hall, lead care pastor here at One&ALL. Hey, we wanted to take a few minutes and give you some hints about how to get through this unprecedented time of COVID-19. And I know a lot of you are doing well, but I do also know, and I know from my counseling crew, who you'll see right now on this video, that we've been talking, and there is a lot of folks that's not doing well. I mean, things that like anxiety and elements of depression and distress. And remember, anxiety can occur in 3 different time frames. When you think about the past, when you think about the present and what's going on right now, and when you think about the future and worry about that. Man, has that affected my life. Just our whole staff is working from home and not only working through how do we connect with one another and do our jobs, but also how do we connect with the congregation. And also, to be perfectly honest, when I'm home all the time, it's a brand new day. And I'm wondering if it's all positive sometimes, and I need my private space. So there's a lot of distress that could be happening in your lives, as well as mine and us at One&ALL Church. Well, as you know, this has upset our lives. And one of the foremost experts out there is Dr. Bessel van der Kolk. And he is a psychiatrist from one of the large hospitals, I think Boston Hospital in Massachusetts. And he says that we are in this time, we have some preconditions of trauma that can set us up to be traumatized. Now, if we are traumatized, our crew can tell you that that's probably going to lead to anxiety, depression, that distress that you feel. And it can lead to relational problems with your kids and with your spouse and with extended family. And so we would like to talk a little bit from that perspective today and talk about those preconditions of trauma. I'm going to list those, and then I'm going to let our professional counseling crew introduce themselves, and we're going to have a discussion, kind of like we do in supervision on a weekly basis, about clients. Now, obviously, that's all confidential, and any examples we use today will not be using anyone's specific details. Those are all confidential. So let me talk about first those 5 preconditions. I'm going to give you a very brief summary of those, and we're going to get into a discussion to hopefully that'll be helpful to you. What are those preconditions of trauma? 1, lack of predictability and loss of sense of time and sequences. When we lose predictability in our present existence and our future thoughts about the future and what's going to happen when, that's going to lead to a boatload of distress. 2, immobility, feeling stuck. You know, think about what it's felt like being home on a continual basis. I have this little man cave at home that I sit in and doing Zoom meetings with people and trying to help as best I can. And honestly, I love my man cave at home, but it feels like cabin fever. And I'm looking at those walls and they're closing in on me, and oh my goodness, it just feels like I'm trapped. And where am I going to go? To the store where I'm going to catch COVID-19? I'm taking second thoughts about leaving there. So it's immobility physically, et cetera, et cetera. 3, loss of connection. Obviously, I don't need to tell you about being stuck at home and feeling like at times not heard or not seen or, just stuck at home, that immobility. We're going to talk about that. Where we numb ourselves out. You know, there's nothing like if you're watching the news, like I started off in this COVID-19 about a month ago, and watching the news back to back to back to back, it becomes overwhelming. It just becomes my whole life, and my whole life is over, and it's not getting better, and more people have died. And it could be numbing out to the phone. It could be numbing out with substances. These are avoidant behaviors. We're going to talk about those in a few moments. A loss of sense of safety is the next one that van der Kolk talks about. And think about not physical safety. It could be those invisible enemies that we don't know if someone's breathing in our in our direction, or it could be who's going to break into our house because they couldn't get the toilet paper. I mean, it could be any of those things. And then finally, the loss of sense of purpose. How do we make a difference when we're locked up in our homes? How long is this going to go on? How am I going to make a difference? And if your direction is somewhat like mine, wanting to be the hands and feet of Jesus, I'm thinking, how effectively am I going to do this? When this whole thing started, oh my gosh, I thought, how am I going to connect? How am I going to care for people in this time? So it's that loss of sense of purpose. So let's give you some coaching tips on each one of these to address each one of these areas. And first, I'd like you to meet our panel today. All these folks are your professional counseling crew, most of them today. Not everybody could join us. So I'd like each of you to, and I'll just tell you who's going to go next because you can't see my screen. I'm going to go around my screen, folks. And so why don't you give your name, what you do here, how long you've been here at One and All, and just a very brief comment or a couple comments about yourselves and how this pandemic has affected you, because it's affected all of us. I'm sure we can all agree. Donna, why don't you go first?
Certainly. My name is Donna Horn. I am serving currently on staff here at One and All as one of the care counselors. I am a marriage family therapy associate. I'm sorry I had put all that together in words. And I have a master's degree in counseling psychology. And that's my heart, to help people to take the psychology and the theology and put it together in a way where people can be assisted. COVID has been very much affected me in a lot of ways. I'm not as happy about being so still, and yet I have had to invent ways to keep I guess I should say to develop a new normal. I've had to let go of what was the old normal. And so to actively do that, I have had to set different schedules so that it could be exciting, rather than staying in jammies all day and what have you. Just get up and put the makeup on and everything and go to the kitchen. So it has been such that I've had to work on staying in a place of peace, because with so much other things around, sometimes it gets a little delicate in terms of my emotions and my thought patterns as well.
Arianna.
Hi, my name is Arianna Hollings. I have been with One and All for, a little over 5 years. I do serve as the marriage and family therapist trainee here. When it comes to COVID, I think, it has affected and impacted so many people, including myself and my family. When it comes to work or school, having that sense of, loneliness and anxiety is unfortunately common among people that, I hold near and dear to my heart. But what better time than to really dive into your faith? I think this has really kind of given me the opportunity to continue to build and strengthen my relationship with Christ. And just, given me that hope of it's this too shall pass. So I think just keeping that mindset for me has been beneficial. And, just taking everything day by day has really just been the mindset I've had, and the impact I know it's had on everybody around me has kind of been rough. But I think as we continue to take it day by day, things will slowly start to get better. So that's where I'm at with this situation we're in.
Thanks, Arianna. Brianna.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brianna Ager. I am also one of the care counselors on staff at ONE&ALL. I've been with the church just about under a year now, but working with Ron for over a year. So glad to be here. The biggest way that I think I've been affected by COVID was my change in schedule. That was, I had a pretty good routine going, and COVID just really changed it. I've been, like everyone, home a lot, and just trying not to go stir crazy has been a challenge at times. So that's been the biggest, and just trying to find what I can do in this season that is still keeping me moving forward, keeping me active and healthy. That doesn't come so easy when change happens pretty quick. And every week starting, it was a lot of unpredictableness going on. We hear one thing, it's going to, the deadline gets pushed back. So there was a lot of just unknown to work on, and just to kind of keep moving with each obstacle. And then also the loss of just not seeing my friends and my family as much. A lot of family members I can't see right now just for health reasons. And that's been a big challenge. So I'm very thankful that God has given us technology in this era that we can still stay socially connected while we're physically distant. So that's where I'm at.
Thanks, Brianna. Jill, tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, hi, my name is Jill Stanson. I've been at the church working as a marriage and family therapist trainee, and now I'm an associate since January 2019, so a little over a year. I think some of the biggest changes for me are that, I think like everyone, a lot more time at home, just adjusting to what that looks like. My husband is a first responder, and so he's still working a lot. So I'm home a lot more. He's out working at a higher risk job. So just kind of adjusting to all the changes that come with that. Like everyone, like Donna mentioned, kind of the new normal. I feel like I've had to kind of change what feeling productive looks like for me personally. I learned how to crochet a blanket. It's not what I used to do, but it's been really nice to feel like I'm doing something that feels fun to see and do. Just really trying to focus on things that I can control. One of our closest friends had a baby last week. So, just even adjusting to the fact that we can't even visit. And so, there's been life keeps going, and just adjusting as things come, but very grateful to be healthy. So.
Thanks, Jill. All right, let's dive in. We want to do it in about the next 15 minutes, folks. We're going to give you some coaching tips on how to get through this. We've given you kind of a big introduction, which is no surprise to some of these. So let's launch in here. Lack of predictability. Let's see, Brianna, why don't you kick us off, and then we'll go to Donna, then anybody else has got some comments, we'll move to the next area. Go, Bri.
Okay. So kind of in my introduction, I sort of touched on this a little bit, just with the change in scheduling. It started off with a lot of, unknown that it's unpredictable. So to create some predictability, create a new schedule. That's kind of how I've found that things have been helpful, and include in there things that you could plan out your day, you could plan out your week, and just find your rhythm or find a new routine in this quarantine. And by doing so, you create things that you can anticipate, that you can expect to be coming in a time where it feels just things are very unexpected and unknown. Whether that's cooking, you could have some fun with that, make some new recipes, or if you have a hobby you like to do, kind of incorporate that in your schedule. I know some are out of work right now, and some are, just have a change in work, their style of working from home. But add that into your schedule and make it, as predictable as you can for the things that you can control right now in the present. That's the biggest one, to incorporate more predictability in this time.
Donna, you have anything to add to that? I think you had a couple comments.
Yeah, she covered it very well, Brianna. Thank you for giving me just a little touch in here. And I would say, make your predictability, have some fun in there. You know, yeah, with the kids are having just as much a struggle as you are at this time. So make it kind of fun, you know, just kind of scheduling things in the midst of the day that kind of join the family together, and kind of schedule the things in the day that kind of allows the family to touch other members of the family. We have Sunday dinner, believe it or not, and we're in the confines of staying home. We have Sunday dinner every week at 3 o'clock with the family. We have a Zoom or a telephone contact. So there's ways to do this to make it predictable, and, oh, we're going to see grandma. And it will help to keep that trauma from overcoming and oppressing you.
All right. Anybody else have any comments on that area before I move on? All right, let's move into immobility, that cabin fever, feeling stuck, feeling like you can't move. Let's see, why don't we start with Donna? Why don't you start with this one? You had some comments on that.
Yes, that immobility is a big one. So we need to activate our bodies because we're literally not going out. But believe it or not, that can be done by activating our mind as well. So this is a great time to bring the family into a mindset of getting closer to God, building the trust in God, you know, and that through prayer. You know, so activating our conversation with God, you know, and activating our minds by giving, and I'm still stuck on the children in some way, but giving the children opportunity to say what's on their mind and express their emotions and to release, you know, don't be too surprised when they come up with these things, but, you know, so that they can walk in peace as well. And scripturally, he said he would keep us in perfect peace if we would keep our mind stayed on him. So as we activate our mind in the midst of this chaos, then the chaos ameliorates and we see it having less and less impact on us. And what better way, what better time to do it in prayer and Bible games or any kind of game, you know, that would keep you kind of your mind still moving, and then the immobility, the literal stuck, stationary, becomes less aggressive in our minds.
Bree, you have on this one?
Yeah, just kind of piggybacking off of what Donna said, this kind of falls in with the scheduling, but it's finding those things like how I mentioned, like cooking a meal, or if, you know, you have a certain exercise time that might look different. But I mean, just exercise in general is getting you, you know, out of that physical stuckness that we seem so confined at home. But if you have even a little space on your porch to be moving, or a backyard, or even if you can walk outside with a mask, walk your dog or anything like that, just to break out of that feeling of stuckness. And you can, you know, use this also with the routine and make it regular.
Thanks. Jill, Arianna, anything you want to add?
Yeah, actually, I think, you know, being active and staying healthy is key in all of this. I think, thank goodness again for technology too, because you can incorporate things such as doing online exercise classes, you know, not you feeling stuck at home, but you can still do exercises, you know, in your backyard, or such as, you know, jumping rope, doing dances, yoga. And I know that there are also interactive or active video games too that incorporate, you know, physical movement. So I think a lot of that, thankfully, are things that can kind of help to keep us staying active and keeping us on that healthy path.
All right, let's move to a different area. Jill, why don't you kick us off with that loss of connection?
Yeah, I think this is one of the big ones right now. I mean, these are all so important, but this is, kind of one that I think we all felt right away was this like change in ways that we are connecting, whether it's not going in and seeing coworkers or going to church on Sundays physically. There's immediately this change in connection. And of course, the positive is that we've also, as a society, kind of transitioned into finding new ways to connect with technology, which is amazing. But I think that the best kind of biblical example of what this looks like is the when it describes the church as a body, we're all different parts of a body. It's this interconnected kind of idea that we need each other. And I think that it's not just talking about the small church or the universal church, but just this idea of no one is can do everything. We need one another. We need regular, leaning on others, being able to provide or help others. That's so important. I also think there's external connection and internal connection. I think that there's ways that we can better connect with others externally. There's so many different ways on our phones. I mean, FaceTime, Zoom, there's Marco Polo, there's all kinds of different apps that we can use to see people's expressions, to be able to play off of and understand, like as if we were talking with them, as if we were, and we know it's not the same, but it's what we have right now, and it's something, and it's connecting. And even, connection helps us kind of make sense of what's happening. And right now we need that because no one really, has this really sure sense of totally what's going on or, how we're all handling it. And so being able to kind of have a more connected experience brings actually some harmony to an otherwise pretty chaotic, potentially chaotic situation. I think just internally too, just finding ways to connect, kind of like what we were talking about with the immobility, just finding ways to connect with yourself and being able to find ways to express what you are feeling. I love that people talked about, finding like classes, workout classes. There's so many free resources online, and there's a lot of things that have been made free during this time. So, there's exercise classes, art classes, yoga, meditation, all kinds of, journaling. Journaling is a huge one of just being able to connect and understand better your own experience of what's going on with your own body, with your own, inside your house. So those are some of the kind of thoughts I had on what connection is looking like and ways we can maybe improve things just internally for us.
Yeah, and Jill, that brings up, we've got all kinds of connection for anybody out there here at the church every day of the week. And Jill, you brought up yoga. We've got something called Holy Yoga here that's a biblically oriented program too. If you're wondering about that, we can give you more information. I think, Bree, you had a few more comments you said you wanted to make on this area, the loss of connection.
Yeah, it was more just to emphasize the importance of staying connected to people in this time. In the beginning of the Bible in Genesis, when God says it's not good for man to be alone, we might be, I mentioned this earlier, we're physically distant from each other, but we can still stay socially connected, and we can reach out if you are struggling right now and just feeling, overwhelmed by a lot of the changes. Reach out to someone and just say like, hey, I just need some support right now. Maybe I want to ask, like, how are you being affected? Am I the only one going through this? Stay connected with the people that are close to you, that love you and that you love, however you can, whether it's by phone, text, do funny texts to each other, do these Zoom calls. I know me and some friends, we've got on here and we've played games on here. There's apps that you could connect and just build those connections in regularly because they're so important when you're isolated.
Donna, do you have something you wanted to share?
Yeah, I was going to say, and don't be afraid to stay intensely connected. That is with the emotions, to really share what you're feeling, to cry with each other. There are a lot of people who have been through the midst of loss and what have you. And all of that is looking very differently. Grief is looking very different, that we're not able to hug, come up with creative ways, a thumb up or, the teddy bear kisses through the virtual, but the ways to stay connected intensely with the voices and the emotions of each other. And a great way to do that, again, I think I said earlier, is through prayer. We can stay connected by the Spirit and coming together and praying together for each other or the condition of the world or whatever is on our heart this time at that time, and then feel the release of it. And like Pastor Ron said, I just put a plug in for Divorce Care 20&2. I'm facilitating that. And so this can be a real tough time for people going through already a chaotic situation. So to have people that have common symptoms and COVID, will be very helpful at this time. So don't be afraid to connect the intense emotions as well. We want to laugh and we want to joy and all of that, but we're still suffering, and we cannot deny that part of our connection as well.
Thanks, Dana. How about numbing self out? Jill, why don't you kick us off on this area?
Yeah, I think Ron mentioned before just numbing to, the news or being on our phones or watching endless TV. There's a lot of ways to, it's a way to escape. And, substances as well, drugs and alcohol are one that is an escape. And I think that there's healthy distraction, and then there's also prolonged avoidance that becomes really unhealthy. And being able to to see where you're at with your current level of distraction versus, numbing and avoiding, to try to kind of pause and reflect on what things have looked like for you personally, I think is really important, because avoiding is really kind of denying the present situation. It's a way to escape. And I think we could all understand the desire to escape right now. We all want to fast forward and so when things were normal, or rewind when things were a little more predictable and stable before. And so it's really this lack of being able to be present. And the reason that that's so important is because, well, first off, we're impacting the people around us, the other people in our household. And sometimes it can be most dangerous when we're living alone and we're avoiding. But again, it goes back to that lack of connection. We need connection to understand what's happening around us, to not get ourselves in really dangerous situations. But it's also just so important for us to remind our bodies, remind our minds that we're alive, we're useful. We can still be very present with where we're at, even though we're not happy with where we're at. There are still ways to do that, and just to be aware of our needs, our sensations going on without always needing to avoid. One helpful thing can be to ask others, if there are others living in your home or checking in on you, to kind of reflect what they're seeing, to kind of reflect what they're experiencing of your own, kind of reactions to what's going on. And that could be kind of a scary place to, ask for that kind of feedback, but it can also be a really honest and authentic look at what they're observing of us. If we're avoiding, we're not really living in, what's going on around us. And so again, we can turn this numbing into finding purpose, finding intention, really trying to make the present time meaningful in its own way, even if it wasn't something we asked for or wanted. And again, it's kind of like what I said at the beginning, kind of redefining what being productive looks like. And just, we all have to do that. It's not giving up. It's not, it's not a negative. Right now, it's what we can do. It's all we can do. I was thinking about kind of Bible verses that tie in with this, and I stumbled upon Psalm. It's 143, and so many of the Psalms just really reflect this deep, intense emotion and longing, and so much of it is painful. And he says, "My spirit grows faint within me; my body's dismayed. Answer me quickly, Lord. My spirit fails." And even when the present is painful and confusing, and working through it feels hard, it can be so easy to avoid. But it can also, writing things out, working through these things in different ways, expressing either verbally or through writing or through, ways of connecting, just working through where you are at, rather than waiting for things to fall back into place. Sometimes we need to work through these things in order to come out of it and have a better understanding of ourselves in the situation. So I don't know if anyone else had any thoughts. That was kind of what I was reflecting on with just the idea of...
Got about 5 minutes left. Does anybody else have a comment on that? Otherwise, we'll go to the last two and I'll make some closing comments. Jill, just tell us briefly about sense of loss of safety. You said you had a few comments you want to make about that.
Yeah, safety. I think safety can be a really, and again, it kind of goes to connection. It's internal and it's external, but it's this idea of, do you know what it feels like to feel safe, to have this kind of sanctuary? And when it can't always be external, some of us are really limited right now with where we're living, with where we're at. Is there a way to kind of find a safer place internally, to find kind of a peace? And of course, just relying on God in these moments, in this, in this time, that he can be the constant, the refuge, the peace, the shelter from the storm. The idea of, Psalm 23, he makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. We need that safety, that sanctuary from the chaos of what's going on, and giving yourself the chance to find that safety, to find that space, because God tells us we need it. We need it. He'll make us take it if we need it.
Thank you, Jill. Let's go into our last area real quick. I'll make some closing comments. Loss of sense of purpose. Anybody got a comment on that you'd like to make, and how to find that sense of purpose? All right, well, I'll comment on it. Well, the loss of sense of purpose is, ultimately our purpose, folks, we know, is to be the hands and feet of Jesus on this earth. Holy Spirit, Jesus left, sent the Holy Spirit, indwelled us. We have an opportunity to make a difference. So many of you out there at One and All are already engaged, being proactive in our Compassion Network, making calls to people in the congregation. And I want to thank each one of you for doing that. The more that you are proactive, the less you're going to feel that loss of sense of purpose. This is an opportunity, folks, to find that purpose, to get there. Just listen to Jeff's sermons and the many devotionals we have on a daily basis. I want to leave you with this thought today. And so if you're having trouble, anxiety, depression, distress, number one, let me talk about referrals. All you have to do is call me, and I can refer you to any of these folks, and also let you know how to make connections to life coaching and some of those things. My cell phone number is 951-255-2340, or you could go to our website, oneandall.church/care. It'll tell you about all of our different ministries, and we've got plenty of referrals for you if one doesn't work out or you need to figure out what's going to work out. If you're having trouble in this time, take a moment to consider a few biblical texts. Moses in the wilderness, tough situation. Every turn God provided for them, for the people of Israel. Everything from the Red Sea to food provisions in the wilderness. Talk about a stressful time. Think about Joshua, crosses the Jordan, won the land, which would become Israel, against impossible odds, against enemies that were giants. And the disciples, Matthew chapter 6. Disciples are wondering, how is our needs going to get taken care of? Longest discourse in the Sermon on the Mount. He begins with saying, you don't need to worry about who takes care of the grass in the field, who are and the birds in the air. And he ends it with, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be taken care of. If you're a Christ follower, you're covered. It's going to be taken care of. And what he doesn't do, that's what God gives us community for. Get involved with a community group. Get connected. It's never too late. Reach out. We encourage you to do this. Jesus is there, and we are here. So please feel free to let me know. Any closing comments from our folks talking today or sharing today? Donna.
I just wanted to just kind of wrap it up with James 1 and 2. When trouble of any kind comes your way, consider an opportunity for great joy. Look to Jesus, rest in him. He promised never to leave you nor forsake you. And guess what? COVID and everything else that is a crisis is not a surprise to our God. He's yet sovereign. He's yet in control, and we yet win.
Let me just end in a prayer. God, I thank you for everybody listening today. And God, help us be stronger. The only way we're going to get stronger is be together. We can travel far. We don't want to travel far. Just do it alone. It doesn't work. We need God and we need each other. And I thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. Thanks for listening.